Good afternoon, one and all present here. Once again, I welcomes you all on the third lecture. So, the topic of our third lecture is startup. It's legal and ethical steps. You all know while starting a business, you have to see all the pros and cons of the business. And there are some legal permissions you need to take. For the same, I would like to invite Dr. Anu Hardenia ma'am to give her views on that. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Kiran madam. Thank you for inviting me. Firstly, I would like to share my presentation. Just let me know once the presentation is visible. Am I audible to everyone? Kiran ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So once again, good afternoon, everyone. Those all who are present here, to have a discussion along with me on the topic, that is how to plan for startup, legal and ethical steps. Likewise, when we talk about startups, as we all know that startup, very basic definition about this startup, to do something new and to launch a particular product into the market. And if we are planning to do something new, there are certain rules and regulations that we need to follow before setting up an entity. And today we are going to talk about those very basic steps which are actually legal and ethical when you're planning, when he or she is planning, to go for a startup and to set one of his own, market and a startup, you can say a place into the market. So let's begin with the very basic steps. And these are, okay, the basic funda behind starting, or you can say the planning of a startup is, there are three basic steps which we need to follow, or you can say which we need to plan if we want to create a successful startup in the market. And if we want to have regular customers, or you can say if you want to have a good profit from your startup, firstly create a business plan. Creating a business plan lets you to have a lookout, or you can say you can have a market scenario that what my product is going to look like, and if that product is launched into the market. And the business plan can be the short-term one and the long-term one. If we are going to plan for a successful startup, we need to have a short-term plan and long-term plan as well. Because if we are planning only a short-term plan, then we might not get a good scale up of our startup. And if we only plan for a long-term, then also we cannot go for a proper scalability. So in case if you're planning something to do new, or in case you're planning to something to make a plan to make a product, it could be any product likewise, and it's not basically focused to the pharmacy itself. You can prepare a good product, or you can go for a changing of some method, changing of some new colors, doing some innovation in the previous products. You can plan for anything, and let it be call as into some category, and you can make it into fall into the category of a startup. So prepare a short-term plan, go for it, execute the short-term plan, and if you feel so your short-term plan is successful, then we can go for the long-term plan. In short, we have to make the short-term plan also and the long-term plan, because if we are successful in either short-term plan, then definitely that success of a short-term plan will lead to the long-term plans. Okay, likewise, if you are preparing any sort of a product in the number like 10, 20 on a short scale, and if you get a good success, or if you get a good result from those 10, 20 parts, you have to definitely scale up them into 100, 200,000 and 2,000 products. So if your mind setup and if your shortcomings and the pros and cons match with the short-term plan and the long-term plan, then definitely you're going to have a good protocol, and the the number of, you can say that the percentage of success is more. So that's why your business plan should be a perfect one and a ready to go when you're planning to launch and planning to go for a startup in any kind of a category or in any kind of a business plan. Again, once you have prepared with the protocol, the second main thing that you have to got covered under yourself is called as identity. Identity is called as the key matrices. After planning of something on document, you need to actually focus on the key matrices, or you can say the parameters in which you are going to focus very much once you need, or you can say once you got to have a good profit from your startup, right? So second thing, identify those main ingredients, or you can say identify those main categories, or identify those main matrices which will help you to get a good profit or a good scalability, and you can, in which you can launch your product in a good number in the market for your business plan, right? Third, a very important parameter and aspect which will make you a more confident person, or once you've planned for all the basic things, now you're entering into a proper legalized and ethical structure. You need to know what exactly will your startup will look like means whether you are going to be a sole person working into your startup, or you can say you are working into a partnership. It depends upon the type of plan that you have prepared, like we talked about in short plan and long plan. So in short, when we are going to start a startup planning, these three criteria are need to be focused, that we call create, identity, and select correct, right? In that case, once the planning has to be done, once the planning is covered, just select the main criteria, main categories which you need to focus, which you need to improve in your startup, that is going to help you further in your future endeavors. After that, once everything is planned basically, then go for the legal structure. You need to know which type of business I am planning for in my startup, and which type of structure should I follow, okay, legally and ethically, once I'm planning for the particular startup to go into the market. All right. Yes. When we are entering into the legal part, ethical part to plan a startup in India, basically, because in India there are a number of rules and regulations talking about when we plan some kind of a business, we plan some kind of organizations to start up. And those kind of structures are basically of 4 types, which are divided into 2 categories, right? Or you can say these are the only 4 types of categories in which we can register, or on which the startup can fall. Let's talk about some of them. Like, if we talk about unregistered structure and registered structure, but I would like to explain you first what exactly is the unregistered structure and what exactly is the registered structure. It means when you have entered into a business plan and you have got registered yourself with some government, or you can say central government, that is called as the registered structure. And yes, if you have entered into a business but you have not registered yourself with the central government, it is called as unregistered structure. When the business is planned, one has to register himself with among all of these 4. He or she has to register, or you can say one has to come into the category among one of these kind of structures that you will be called as. So talking about the first one is sole proprietor, or you can say sole proprietorship. Second one is partnership firm. Okay, it's the part of unregistered structure. Second one is the registered structure, which we call it as a limited liability partnership, or another one is the company. You can call it as a private company or a public, but it's with startups or with such type of work, it's never like a public domain, because you are not going to find anything publicly about any startup. You cannot Google anything about the startup, and you're not going to get whole story, or you can say whole history what exactly the work has been done in the startup. So it is mostly going to be the private one if we talk about such type of works. Okay, So these are the main 4 types of work. Let's talk a little bit about all of them. Like the name suggests, the sole proprietor is like, if I want to work sole, if I want to work alone, that I'll be called as a sole proprietor, right? We'll be discussing in detail in the other slides. Partnership firm, when the work is done under the partnership, when more than 1 or 2 or more than 2 partners are there, it is called as partnership firm. Another one is the limited liability partnership. As the name suggests, into this kind of a business plan, or you can say into this kind of a plan, you can say the owners or the partners have the liability, but that is limited. They do not have control on the capital they are going to invest. That is why it is called as the limited liability partnership. Another one is the private limited, that we have seen number of companies going private limited. So these are the 4 types of structures under which we can start a startup. All right. Okay. So this comes the next. Which are the deciding factors once you are planning for your business, whether you are alone, whether you are with somebody, or you have a group of people, and you all together are planning to go for a startup and execute it well. You need to have a proper structure in which you are going to, get your startup registered. And for that, once you need to follow and you need to know some of these deciding factors on which your startup will depend. Okay. So after you plan the basic things, you need to know, number 1 is the tax benefits. Like everybody is paying tax on their salaries, and these days we have listened about GST, and when we go to restaurants, when we go to buying something or shopping, we have to pay the tax, right? So once we are planning for some startup sort of thing, we need to know which type of tax benefits we are going to get. Either we are going to get something or not. Okay, only then we can decide which structure in which structure we are eligible to get our startup registered. Team structure, whether we will be working alone, right? Whether we will be working in a team. What are the future plans? What are the you can say we are starting with the very little amount of, or you can say the very little number of products we are starting with. But yes, if we get success in a short term, then definitely we are going to scale up our plans in the future. We are going to scale up what for that particular startup in the long term, right? Next is the potential liabilities. What liabilities we are going to have? What is the residential status? Residential status means, like, if there are number of partners in any sort of startup, in any sort of a business, there are partners. If one of your partner is out of India, he is not a very active member, so what exactly, which structure we need to follow, under which structure our startup is going to get registered into. So before planning, or you can say before registering yourself into some sort of a part of a category of a startup, you need to know and you need to follow all such parameters, right? That the startup should be properly executed, or you can say improperly should have a structure, so that once you launch that startup, once you plan to launch that startup into the market, everyone should get to know under which structure you're planning to go for, what are your future plans, and what amount, what capital you want to invest into the startup in initial times. And if you get the status of a good startup, and if the status of the startup is very successful, the amount that you're going to put, or the kind of a funding you are going to get from the angel investors, or you can say the funding authorities, these things decide actually what kind of a startup will it be, and under which category this startup is going to fall. All right. Okay. Another important thing, like I talked about, key startups jo hain, these can be very of a plan with the short term and the long term one. So why we need to incorporate different structures into the startup? From the very beginning, we are talking about, sorry, screen sharing has stopped as the window is closed. Okay, is the slide visible? Because I cannot see. Hello, Kiran ma'am, are the slides visible?
No, ma'am, it is not visible.
Fine.
Now it is visible.
Okay, so we were talking about why we need to incorporate different type of structures. You know, if a person, if he or she wants to, you know, make the startup very successful, the branding, the brand name is very important. You know, for example, if I want to start a business, I cannot start it with my own name. I can start, but if I, you know, give the business or give a startup a good brand and a good legal entity, then definitely it is, you know, going to get famous, right? And definitely it is going to have a good percentage of success in the market, Hana. So to have a good knowledge of income and expenditure of business from personal, one should, you know, able to categorize the startup into the structure, into a legal structure actually. And if you want to add some kind of a, you know, business partner, that is called as a co-founder, you need to incorporate a special in a legal structure, Hana. That is why it is said that team is a key to run a business. So sharing of profits with a team in a form of ESOP is very important aspect. Hana. So, and for example, if we talk about any kind of a business that are being, you know, running these days, you must have known most of them are running in, you know, with the, you can say different type of partners are there and number of partners are more, Hana. And yes, definitely sometimes it is always like that. The startup is not been into the market since 6 months, and you know, the you can see the partners are being finding that this was your responsibility and this is not my responsibility. So in that case, a team has to register properly the startup into the into the category, so that, you know, once a person gets a exit, या फिर you can say an entry into the business, it's very important to register the, you know, business into some kind of a registration part. All right. Another thing is, after you know that which type of structure or which type of part your startup gets fall into, now it's time to know when to incorporate. Okay, it depends upon totally on the requirements of the business, and yes, definitely on the funds, number of funds, amount of funds, number of investors are important. Okay, and which type of funds will be required. Okay, and the suggestion is to incorporate after the proof of concept. Proof of concept matlab, once you know your concept is definitely proved and you know that it is all right and it is well to do, and we have, you know, double check the concept, then only incorporate everything and start with it. All right. Okay, how a startup is incorporated. You know, once you have planned everything on documentation and you have, you know, you're ready to go for it, what you can do is you can identify the brand name, Hana. Give it a shot, give it a brand name. You know, you can create a legal identity name, and it's like that always. You know, once the, you know, owner is there, he or she can start thinking of giving the business, giving the startup a good branding. And it can be same or it can be different. It means that once a person has started his or her startup, and he can start, it's not that he or she can start only one startup. Once the business is there, it can be multi-business. You know, it can also come under the category of multi-business. One can start the multiple businesses if the one has been started. So that is why the brand name, or you can say the logo, or you can say the proper brand identity is important, just to make sure that your startup or your business should be identified well, in a well-known manner in the society. Yes, then go for a trademark. You know, if a trademark is available, you can register yourself as a trademark. You can have a good trademark for your brand name and a legal name from which you will be known into the market. Yes, after that, do write the rules and responsibilities of the founders of the team. Like I told you, that business always, you know, a big business always requires different types of minds. You know, so there are always, you must have seen, you know, different people engaged in businesses, right? And once, you know, everything does well, so sometimes, like I told you earlier, sometimes many times people do fight on the, you can say the sake of their roles and responsibilities, on the sake of their profits. So there should be a legal, documentation, what are the roles and responsibilities of all type of people or all type of owners which are into the, कह सकते हो आप, into the startup or into the, partnership deed or into the partnership form. Right, select the right entity according to your business. You should be well knowing which type of entity legal entity actually should I get into, right? And once you are done, you are done with that, you've decided that this is going to be my startup, this is going to be the category of the startup, you should know which type of compliances are available on the business. If you are like, these are the, most common types that I have written here. Most common types of, what we can say is the taxes mainly, which will be applied on business. For example, if you have planned your startup or if you have planned your business into sales, right? We have always seen, like we talked about, we are selling something to the people, we are delivering something to the people, GST will be applied. So you need to know that if you are into the category of goods and services tax, you need to pay tax to the government. Like, if you are taking the, GST from your customers, you need to pay that particular amount of tax to the government. That is why a person, charges GST to the people, to the customers, because he or she collects and he himself has to, pay GST to the government and taking from the customer. That is why it is also called as double taxation. So once you're into the sales, you need to know the slab actually. When you're into sales, there are 2 to 3 slabs, in which you have to get registered yourself into the GST. For example, if you are having, the sale of approximately, or you are having, the turnover of approximately 20 lakh rupees, right, annum. So you need not to go for the GST. If you are having the slab above 20 lakhs, 20 to 40 lakhs above, so in that case, the GST has got to be registered and the tax has to be paid. Second one is the payroll. Like if you are giving salary to someone, right? If you are giving salary to someone, like you have to register yourself into the labor laws or the TDS. TDS is like the tax deducted at the source. In that case, what happens is, there are also different categories in which the owner, or you can say the businessman, or the partners of the startup has follow regarding the payroll of the persons they are giving salary to. In this case, if you are giving salary to the people who are either you can say 10 or less than 10, there are not much rules and regulations for all such labor compliances or TDS. But if in case the person, the businessman, is giving salary to more than 10 people or more than 10-20 people, he has to register himself, his firm into the ESI. You can say that it is for the employee insurance, right? Otherwise, if he or she is giving salary to the much number of people, then PF has to be followed, right? That is called as the provident fund, right? Or you can enter into the labor law also. So before starting a startup, before giving a salary to the persons, you need to know the number of people you want to give salary, or the number of employee that you have hired into the organization for work. Depending upon that, you need to register your firm into the either labor law, right? You can say either the employee insurance or the provident fund. So after sales, the second important tax was on the payroll, right? Another like if we talk about another things at the tax, it is called as the TDS. Like most of us are working into some kind of organization. We also know that there are different types of slabs. Like if a person is getting a salary of approximately 21,000, right, per month, then I don't think so there is much tax or either any sort of tax to be paid on that amount of salary. So a person, if he is entering, or if he has entered and giving salary, he is himself getting the salary, he himself has to pay the tax. And if his employee is getting the salary, that the employee has to pay tax on his salary. Like talking about the net profit, if we talk about all these statements of bank accounts, you can say that an audited statement. That is why in a business a person has to go or has to follow the guidelines of the auditor's report and has to pay the income tax on the profit he has got, and he has to show all the kinds of like we talked about income and expenditure to the government. So these are the you can say that the common type of taxes that which a person needs to take care of when he is entering into some type of startup business. Okay, so when we talked about startup, these are the category in which the startup falls. If you're starting a business, if you want to start actually a business alone, then this kind of a category a startup will follow. This is called as sole proprietorship. Okay, the advantage will be ownership will be individually owned. You will be the owner, you will be the owner, and you are the sole individual responsible for your proprietorship or your business. He or she has the power to control the business operations, to take the decisions. You are the sole responsible, and you are the bearer of your all profits and losses. Easy to set up because you are the only one to take decision. You need not to follow the guidelines of other people also. So this is called as sole proprietorship. Disadvantage is that because there is no separation, unlimited liabilities there. It is you are free to go for any type of a capital investment you want to. You cannot add another founder in the business if you have registered yourself as a sole proprietorship in any kind of a business plan. The process is like you have to, in short, it has been explained into the 3 steps. Actually, if you want to go for a startup, you have to decide the trade name of your startup. You have to get yourself registered in some type of tax payment liability like shop, establishment, or GST. Open a bank account, then you're ready to go. So these are the 3 very simple and basic steps in which, or you can say using which, you can start your business as a single person. That is called as a sole proprietorship process. Another one is the partnership firm. Apart from the sole proprietorship, this is the partnership firm. As the name suggests, when there are number of people involved, like if there are 2 or more than 2 people involved, this kind of a firm, this kind of a business plan is called as partnership plan, right? Here the case is different, right? Because number of people involved in this kind of a firm, in this kind of a business, in this kind of a startups are more. There is no single person, number of people are involved. And let me tell you one thing, in this kind of a partnership firm, you are free to have any number of persons as a partners. You can, there can be 2 persons, there can be 200 persons as well, in the partnership firm. So advantages can be 2 and more individuals, 2 and more person, shares the, responsibility, shares the cost, and you can, say, actually they share all of kind of a profits and losses also, and advantage is like proper, there is a proper agreement of a partnership, and a good advantage of this kind of a firm is also be there, like silent partner concept is possible. Silent partner concept means that if a person is, ready to invest some capital in the business, but he doesn't want to be there every time with you. He doesn't want to be an active member of the partnership or active person involved in the startup. This kind of a partnership is also allowed in the partnership firm, and this is also easy to set up. But on the other hand, different disadvantages are there because everybody is responsible for some kind of work going into going into the startup or going into the firm. So you can say the roles and responsibilities are different, and each one is dependent upon each other, right? And the benefit of slab rate taxation is not applicable because every other person is, if gaining something, that he or she has to pay the tax on the percentage, on the amount the person is receiving as a profit, or you can say as a loss also, right? Partnership firm process. The one and the most important thing when you are into the partnership firm is draft a partnership deed. A partnership deed should be very much, detailed and very much, very easily or very well explained to the partners. A stamp paper print should be there. You should apply for individual PAN, and you can apply for the PAN number, and you have to open a bank account in the name of a partnership firm. Like you can register yourself as a partnership, as a partners, and you have to open a bank account in which all of the partners will be there, and all of the profit and losses will be handled from that bank account only. It cannot be like that. If you are 2 to 3 partners sole, you cannot go for handling all the accounts by yourself, or you can say individually. So these are the important points when you are going into a partnership firm legal process for a startup. Okay, let's talk about the limited liability partnership. In this case, most of the things are matching with the partnership firm. Apart from that, the things different are because people are more here, exactly like it were in partnership firm. 2 or more people can be here. They have to share the responsibilities again, but they have to register their firm in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. MCA is the department. If you want to go legally and ethically, if you want to register your startup, you register your startup with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Again, the disadvantage, no slab rate, no benefit of taxation will be there. Each and everyone has to pay the tax. Private company limited, like we talked about, see, it is again a separate legal entity, because a person is running the company privately, but it can be small, it can be like with the one person, it can be with the different persons. It's up to you. If you want to run the company again sole, you can do that. If you want to run the company with number of people engaged, you can do that. And the different people who are into the company, like we talked about private limited company, the people are there who share the, you can say the percent, they have got the percentage of shares, and the shares are divided into very small units. We call it as a shares, and those persons who buy the shares are called as shareholders. This can be only possible in the private company. In this case, double taxation on net profit is called as a dividend. It is like, when we talk about double taxation, it is like when a person is getting the dividend on any sort of a profit in the company, the owner has to pay the tax. And if the dividend is divided into the further people as a salary also, a person is getting a dividend of the net profit, then again the person has to pay the tax on that particular amount he has received. So in this case, it is also called as the double taxation. And in the case of a private firms, your private limited companies, what happens is like different kind of restrictions and different kinds of bans are there, that you cannot take a loan or give a loan to a person that is not related to you. That is why it is a kind of a long procedure with the private company, because the number of people engaged are more, and the steps of working are more, and the tax there is a double taxation part. That is why winding up with this kind of work is not easy. And the people that share different, the people that have different kind of shares in the kind of a business and organization, there are 2 types of shares that are called as equity shares and preference shares. Equity shares are called as common stocks. The people have the voting power. Each person has got the power of a 1 vote actually. People do vote for something, so each and every person will have a power of giving 1 vote. Preference shares are the type of the shares which have got the different preference right, or you can say that very specific rights that were given to the person are called as the preference shares. Company incorporation process. Once you are done with everything, now it's time to get your company registered and to start up the business also. Like I told you, trademark is very important. If the trademark is available, the one you want, you should go for it. Give your company a name and register yourself with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Apply for the digital signature. These days it is very important aspect. Apply for the digital signatures of all shareholders. In this case, once you are done with all sort of processes, Ministry of Corporate Affairs will issue the certificate of incorporation. Okay? In this manner, or in this using this kind of thing, you can register your company and you can start up with the process of your company. Once you're done with the incorporation process, once the legal documentation, or you can say the MCA part is covered, now the another important points that you have to go with it is open the bank account, like the amount that you have promised in the deed, that I will be spending approximately 1 lakh, or you can say 10 lakh as a capital investment to the business, you have to transfer the capital amount as that you have mentioned in MOA, that is called as the memorandum of association, right? You have to file the business commencement certificate with MCA, that is the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. You can start up with the business now after all these steps are completed, Anna. And last but not the least, I would say, because you have planned everything regarding the capital investments, regarding the funds that your company will receive, regarding the type of investors your company will see, now you are free to get more loans, more funds to your company as a director funds. Last few steps are like, in the last, register yourself in the Udyam registration, which is also called as MSME registration, or you can call it as, because you are going to get a login ID and a password for that, user ID and a password for that. Once you receive that login ID, password, you can say that you have registered yourself with the Startup India, right? And you will be called as a legal identity, your legal entity that has been registered with the Startup India. So, these were all kind of basic steps that a person, that a group, that, you can say a person that who is going to start a startup has to follow from the very beginning, when the plan has been done, from the very beginning to the last, getting the, registration with MSME, getting the login ID, password. This is how you can start your startup legally and ethically as well. Thank you.
So students, I believe you have clear all your doubts about the legal aspects of startups. Do you have any question? In that case, we are winding up with this session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you, ma'am.